So today I'm going to show you how I painted this white flower without using any white paint. There's no gouache, there's no masking fluid, no white at all. Let's get started. I'm wetting around the whole of the flower, but without touching or wetting any of the petals. Now I've got some wet paint, applying it to the dry area around the petals, so I've got good complete control there. And then as I move away from the petals towards the wetted area, the paint disperses. So the idea is that we get good control where the pencil lines of the petals are, and then it softens as we move away, which is why we wetted the area all around. I started off with a number 8 brush, and then I changed to a number 6 because I just found it slightly easier. You use whatever size is appropriate to you. It's a synthetic round brush. So as you can see, the paper here is dry in between all the petals, and we've got excellent control. And then as we move it towards the wetted area, it softens and blurs. Now I'm using a cellulose paper today, Seawhites of Brighton, 350 GSM. I have a download in the description with all my materials in and the sketch if you want to take a look at that. Yeah, so the paper is 350 GSM. It's a good thickness and it's very white. I really like it because of that quality. It has a very white colour. It's not a cream colour like some of them. Now, because it's cellulose, we have to work a little bit harder to soften the edges. So if you're painting on cotton, you probably wouldn't have to keep softening off the edges like I'm doing. So the idea is that we paint all around the whole of the flower. Now when I come to this section here on the right hand side, I softened the pencil lines because this is going to be a very pale area in the final painting. I'm just picking those out first with some line work. This is Indigo paint, by the way. Don't know if I mentioned that. And then I'm softening. So I'm kind of drawing the pencil line that I rubbed out and then softening it with water, just clean water. And I can push that water in amongst the petals because obviously it's picking up the pigment that I've just drawn on. So I'm getting a very soft blue. And the aim here is to get a dark blue background on the left hand side and a much lighter background fade into nothing, fade into white on the right hand side. Now it is quite a process this. You have to go around every single petal carefully. And then once you've got the whole of the background in, you can start to pull some of the indigo paint or whatever dark paint you've used in towards the centre, just to emphasise some of those petal edges. That's what I'm doing here. And you notice that one brush load goes all the way around the whole of the flower. I'm just adjusting this edge of this background here now. Everybody will get a different result here, depending on how much the water they use, what paper they use, etc. And finally soften off this bit here on the right. Keep refining your edges as you go around. Now you should be working from a reference. I will include a link to the reference photo in the download and in the description, so you can take a look at that or just find your own. Okay, with the background of the flower done, we'll start working on the bee. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining the bee. I do have another video on painting bees. I'll leave a link to that one. But basically what I'm doing here is I am starting off with some of the indigo, the blue, the very dark blue, and then dropping in some Paynes grey onto the top of it. And I'm painting all of the black areas of the bee. Now we're switching to the yellow. My yellow is quite a bright yellow, a cool yellow. So I've just warmed it up a little bit with a spot of orange. I could have used sienna or red. So I've just warmed my yellow up slightly. And now I've got some sienna and I'm dotting it into the centre. The centre's still wet, I've just painted that. And as you can see, the dotting paint flows into the wet area. I'm concentrating on the left hand side of the centre. I'm just pulling and pushing the pigment around with a damp brush to try to get it roughly to where I want it. Of course it's going to settle as it decides it wants to settle itself. This is watercolour and it does its own thing a little bit. Now I've mixed some yellow and blue, the yellow and the indigo, make a green obviously, and painted the stalk. And also diluted that green, and I'm painting around the centre of the head. So there's my source, and you can see that there's some green pigment or colour there at the base of the petals where they congregate into the centre. I don't know flower terminology. Now I've mixed sienna and indigo together to make a grey. It was a little bit too brown, so I added a touch of blue to get a nice cool grey, and I'm painting the shadows of the petals. Now I looked at the source and it's kind of like two layers, so the top layer is going to stay mostly white and the petals that are slightly underneath are in a slight amount of shade and they're grey. But basically copy roughly the source so you know where to put these grey marks, these grey stripes. I'm painting very softly. My colour, my paint is very thin, it's very dilute, and the more I go around, the drier the brush gets. So towards the end I'm practically dry brushing on the stripes, which is giving me a slight tone to the colour and also some texture because we're getting the dry brush mark. So this is all one brush full, going all the way around the whole of the flower. And the more we use it, the drier it gets and the more texture we get. Now I've refreshed my brush stroke and it's much wetter now, so I get more solid lines. And I am applying the shadows as I see fit, as dictated by the source photo. Okay, let's quickly run through what we do on the bee. So as you can see there's my pure yellow, and it's quite a cool, quite a zingy yellow, so I've added some orange to it. Now obviously my blue black area hadn't dried properly and it's running, the yellow's run into it, so I'm just going to dab that out for a moment. I'll work on the wings while that dries. So back to that grey mix that we just had on the flower, and now we're using it semi-dry, dry brush to pick out the wings. And then a darker version of it to pick out the very edge of the wings. And to fill in any of those little gaps, I left gaps between the black and the yellow so that they wouldn't run together, and I'm just filling them in now that the yellow's pretty much dry. It's not fully dry, so I'm expecting a little bit of running into each other, which is what I want, because I'm hoping that that will give the effect of a little fairy body on the bee. A little splatter with the orange and we are done. So that works well with just one flower or maybe a couple of flowers. But what would we do if we had a whole field full of flowers? Well, that's what I'm going to be tackling in my next video. Until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.